It seems like everywhere you turn these days, AI is having a huge impact. Artificial intelligence, it's popping up in so many different areas, from everyday apps to major industries. And the legal field is no exception.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. AI is really making waves in the legal world, and it's moving beyond just those back office tasks. It's really starting to affect core legal processes. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Two really fascinating areas where AI is taking hold. The automation of legal agreements, which is done through something called smart contracts, and using AI to try and predict legal outcomes, what's known as predictive analysis.
Absolutely. And to really get into this,
Yeah.
you've brought some great information from MCHM Abogados. That's ECHEVE Abogados.
That's right.
They're a multidisciplinary law firm based in Almeria, Spain, and they work with all sorts of clients, individuals, companies, and even public entities across the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that stood out to me about them is their focus on these three core principles: commitment, efficiency, and excellence in client service.
Yeah, they seem to really have a strong foundation there.
Definitely. So our goal today is to really unpack what MCHM Abogados has shared about smart contracts and this predictive analysis. We're going to figure out the key takeaways and, most importantly, understand why this is something that everyone should be paying attention to. So let's jump right in. And I think a good place to start is with these smart contracts. Can you explain exactly what they are and how they differ from, a traditional contract?
Sure. At their core, you can think of smart contracts as self-executing agreements. So imagine a typical contract you might sign, but instead of being written on paper, all the terms are written directly into code. And here's the really interesting part. These smart contracts operate on what are called blockchain platforms.
What is blockchain?
Exactly, blockchain. It's like a shared digital ledger that's constantly being verified by a whole network of computers. So it's not just stored in one place. This makes it incredibly difficult to tamper with. And that's where you get the inherent transparency, security, and immutability that smart contracts are known for. Once a smart contract is on the blockchain, it's really hard to change it, and everyone who's authorized can clearly see the terms that have been agreed upon.
So it's more than just digitizing a regular contract. It's the self-executing aspect and the fact that it's on this blockchain that really sets it apart. Can you explain a little bit more about how the self-execution actually works?
Yeah, so the key is that these smart contracts automatically execute their terms as soon as certain predefined conditions are met. Think of it like a vending machine. You put in your money, and if you put in enough and the machine has the item you want, it automatically gives you your snack. Smart contracts work in a similar way. So once those agreed upon conditions are met, maybe a payment is made or a certain date arrives, the code automatically triggers the next steps in the contract. This can cut out the need for middlemen, like escrow agents sometimes, and because the code is controlling everything, it really reduces the chance of human error. The code makes sure that everything happens exactly as agreed when those conditions are met.
That makes a lot of sense. So why is MCHM Abogados so excited about smart contracts? What advantages do they see in using them in the legal world?
Well, they highlight a bunch of benefits, but I think one of the biggest ones is efficiency.
Yeah.
Automating the execution of contracts like this can seriously speed things up and reduce the amount of resources needed to manage agreements. No more waiting for manual processing or chasing people down for signatures.
Right.
Another key advantage is the transparency that comes with using the blockchain. All authorized parties can see the contract's terms and the record of its execution on the shared ledger, which builds a lot of trust. And of course, there's the security aspect. Blockchain technology makes these agreements very secure. It's extremely difficult to tamper with or commit fraud. Finally, there's the potential for some serious cost savings. By cutting out those intermediaries and minimizing errors, you can really lower the overall expenses involved with drafting, managing, and enforcing contracts. It could even make some legal agreements more accessible to people who couldn't afford them before.
Those are all really compelling advantages. Now, MCHM Abogados also mentioned some specific ways they see smart contracts being used in the legal field. What are some of the real-world applications?
Yeah, they gave some great examples. One is lease agreements. Imagine a smart contract that automatically processes rent payments every month. If a payment is missed, the contract could automatically issue a late fee notice or even start the process for handling that missed payment, all based on the terms that everyone agreed to upfront.
That's really interesting.
Another big area is purchase sale agreements. Smart contracts can make buying and selling goods or services much more secure and transparent. They could automatically transfer ownership or release funds once things like delivery confirmation are met. And a third area they mentioned is insurance. For example, a smart contract could automate insurance claims. If a flight is delayed by a certain amount of time, which can be verified by external data, the contract could automatically send a payout to the person with the policy. No more messing around with claim forms.
Wow, that would be a game changer for a lot of people, especially when you've just dealt with a delayed flight. Okay, so that gives us a good picture of smart contracts. Now, let's shift gears and talk about predictive analysis in the legal world. Can you give us a simple explanation of what it is and how lawyers are starting to use it?
Sure. Predictive analysis is basically about using AI and machine learning to analyze tons of historical data to find patterns that can help us predict what might happen in the future. Think of it like those algorithms that learn by looking at past data, like how a weather forecast uses historical weather patterns to predict what the weather will be like tomorrow. In law, it's about feeding huge amounts of data from past cases, legal precedents, and regulations into these AI algorithms. The goal is to get valuable insights and improve decision-making by understanding the likelihood of different legal outcomes.
So instead of just relying on gut feeling or their own past experiences, legal professionals can now use data-driven predictions to guide their decisions. What are some of the advantages that MCHM Abogados sees in this use of AI?
They point out several key benefits. One of the most significant is being able to predict legal outcomes. By analyzing data from past cases with similar facts and arguments, predictive analysis can help lawyers estimate the likelihood of winning a current case. This lets them make smarter decisions about whether to go to court, try to settle, or explore other options.
I see.
It can also be really valuable for risk management. Businesses and individuals can use this technology to identify and address potential legal issues before they become big problems.
That makes a lot of sense.
Another big plus is resource optimization. Law firms can use these tools to better allocate their resources, focusing their time and energy on cases with a higher chance of success. Ultimately, predictive analysis can help lawyers develop much stronger legal strategies overall because they're working with detailed data-driven insights. Imagine a future where even smaller firms can make really strategic decisions about which cases to take on because they have this data to back them up.
So they're getting a data-backed perspective that can really inform their whole legal strategy. What are some concrete examples of how MCHM Abogados sees predictive analysis being applied in the legal profession right now?
Well, in litigation, as we've talked about, lawyers are already using predictive analysis to assess the strength of their case and the potential outcomes. This can impact everything from their initial evaluation of a case to how they plan their approach for trial. In the area of regulatory compliance, companies can use predictive analysis to keep up with changing regulations and spot potential areas where they might be at risk of non-compliance. This way, they can avoid penalties by taking proactive steps. And in negotiations, having data-backed insights into the likely outcomes of different negotiation strategies can give a party a real advantage. It can help them get more favorable settlements.
So it sounds like AI is bringing some pretty big changes to the legal landscape, from automating contracts to providing data-driven insights into potential legal outcomes. As we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways from what MCHM Abogados has shared about the impact of AI in legal automation through smart contracts and predictive analysis?
I think the core message is that this AI-powered automation, especially through smart contracts and predictive analysis, offers some pretty big opportunities for the legal profession. We're talking about greater efficiency in managing agreements, lower costs for legal processes, and the ability to make better, more strategic decisions based on real data.
It really does seem like these technologies could transform how legal services are delivered. And on that note, here's a final thought for everyone listening. As AI becomes more and more integrated into legal processes, through things like smart contracts and predictive analysis, how do you think the roles and responsibilities of legal professionals will change in the future? What skills will be most important for lawyers and others in the legal field to develop as this legal environment continues to evolve? It's something to really think about.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining me for this fascinating deep dive.
Of course, it was my pleasure.